Hello and welcome to the That's So Craven podcast. I'm your host, Mark. We have taken a minute to rest, recuperate, and that's why we did not have the post-Forest show for you. But we're back with a win. We got to celebrate a win. And it was a win that, in my opinion, felt very Fulham. It was meant to be easy, then it wasn't easy. Then it turned out it looks like it was easy, but not so much. But here to discuss this very, very happy moment. And there's so many things to discuss. There's Scott Parker, there's Burnley players, there's Fulham players, many, many things. I have Mike, aka the king of the Atlantic himself. Mike, how are you doing?
I am great. And might I add, fuck off, Scotty Parker. We've got Marco Silva. He is still a genius.
He absolutely is. And well, I was getting a little bit, I wouldn't say nervous, but I was getting a little bit dispirited. And I don't think that's too uncommon as a Fulham fan. This was the end of what I suppose was meant to be a relatively easy run. We have the international break coming up, but we had basically a lot of relegation teams. We had West Ham, then we had what was meant to be maybe not an easy game, but a relatively winnable game against Southampton in the Cup. Then we had Forest, who I know they're on the up, but they were, they're down there for a reason. The table never lies. We only got 1 point out of, okay, we can't get points out of a cup match, but, 2 losses and a draw when really I was hoping for 3 wins followed by another win. But we seem to have course corrected. How are you feeling, Mike, as we came into this match? Were you thinking maybe it's banana skin, maybe it could be a little bit rough, or were you saying, well, it's Scott Parker, we should be able to do the business?
I think there are two ways to think about this. I think when we think about kind of the teams that we had played that you had listed off, like there is a reason why we could have lost those games. Okay, West Ham is in a really good run of form. Nottingham Forest still is playing European footy somehow. So, I mean, there are excuses that can be made there. Losing to Southampton, unacceptable in my mind. I think the biggest thing that concerned me, though, was I think at that point we had gone 3 matches without scoring. And that was something I thought we had corrected a little bit. And so to go through that run, I I don't want to say this was a must win, but between the run that we had been on, between the aspirations that we had had for the season, and then candidly the fact that I personally cannot stand losing to Scotty Parker in anything. Like if I saw him and I had to compete in a game of hopscotch with him, I would not allow myself to lose. Yeah, this felt like as close to a must win as possible. So in my mind, this was the game that was going to define the season, because if we lost or even drew here, we're done. Our season's over. We're on the beach. There's nothing going on. But when you look at the table, yes, we're in ninth. We are right in it. We're right back in it with the other results that went our way. That I still am living the European dream. I have my passport kind of pulled out in a drawer, and I'm thinking about what Azerbaijan might look like next year.
Oh yeah, Baku I hear is very, very good. But I see your point, and I think you're right in that Burnley's kind of a different beast, right? With all respect to them, they were very, very hard to beat under Dyche when they had Tarkovsky and Pope and those guys. Ashley Barnes is still there for some reason. But like you said, some reasons, some excuses can be found for a resurgent West Ham, a resurgent Forest. But Burnley are pretty close to dead and buried. Yes, they have a couple of players I like the look of, but a couple of players does not make a team. The lineup was interesting. I thought it was very, very good, but I wanted your take on it. We look at who was playing. We had King in there. We had Muniz starting. Short of Castagna, who I love, by the way. I think he's one of those players that I can never fault his effort. The technical ability, the decision making, sometimes not the best, but I think he's really someone that gives all for his shirt. Other than Castagna, would you say this is our strongest lineup, or would you be swapping out a few other players?
I was a little disappointed. I'm not going to lie to you. I wasn't actually sure about the purpose of this lineup. I love the way that King started the season, and it felt like he kind of had his confidence taken from him midway through, and it's probably a
Mm-hmm.
growing pain, and we'll come on to King later on. I didn't think Muniz was particularly impressive when we saw him against Southampton, and the way that Raul has been playing all season. I thought it was pretty harsh to drop him. And look, he has things going on in his personal life, so we don't know what's going on there. And I don't know what has happened with Chukwueze, but he does not look like the same player that we had kind of during that fun little spell that culminated in Man City. I wanted to see him back against Ox, as opposed to Oscar Bob, somebody who can really break a line. We kind of alluded to this, but Burnley is a different beast in the sense that they do play this low block. We do struggle to get out from under that low block. You need kind of that flair, that creativity, and just pumping in crosses does not work against a team that's going to play big center backs and try to, pack the box and make sure that you can't get any space to breathe. So I was a little confused by the lineup. There's a reason Mark is a genius, though. Like, let's be honest here.
Yeah, 100%. And look, let's get into the match itself. First half, absolute snooze fest. That was a pretty poor showing for anyone who was watching the Premier League. Fulham versus Burnley. I think Burnley had one good opportunity. No, they had two. Sorry, that's unfair. They had two. One was a shot that was blocked by Calvin Bassey's arm, of all things. I feel a little bit hypocritical because I completely get what the Burnley fans are saying when it's like, well, isn't that a penalty? Because it was a shot on goal, heading towards goal, blocked by an arm. Reason why I say this is because we had the exact same thing the other way around against Villa. If you remember Josh King's shot on goal by Matty Cash, I believe. It feels a little bit different. Maybe I'm nitpicking. You can call me out here, but like, yes, they're both defenders trying to go in for the block, but I don't know. Is it the same move to you, or is it a little bit different? Am I just being very biased as a Fulham fan, saying Fulham Villa should have been a penalty and Fulham Burnley was clearly, that's just how the game is played? Or do you think the rules are just really confusing around handball?
I think I'll take this in two ways. One, I thought he wasn't falling to my recollection. And I think that's kind of hard to control when Bassey is literally falling. Like the definition of the rule is a natural position. Where do you want him to put his arm when he's falling? I actually saw JJ Watt, who's an owner of Burnley and an American football player, or former American football player, who was commenting on this and, giving the speculative eyes on the platform formerly known as Twitter. And I was just laughing there. I think the funnier thing is when you think about the penalty shouts, I thought we actually had two in the first half, including one that was very, very similar. I can't remember which center back it was, but there was a ball that came in that he literally went to dive and tackle, and then he just smacked it down with his hand and it went out for a corner. And I didn't understand how that wasn't even reviewed. So I hate to say this because it sort of ends up being true, but there's a certain point where all of these kind of come out in the wash. They do even out to a degree. And I think them not getting a penalty shout there was probably equaled out by the one that I just described that was later in the half. So I don't feel any type of way about it. I do believe, that the world's out to get us, that VAR absolutely hates us, and that ultimately that was absolutely going to get called against us. But hey, it worked out for us.
Yeah, I think I'd really like to look at the stats on this because I do think big team bias exists. So we're getting kind of derailed a little bit here, but I think, as fans, we're probably going to be a little bit biased. You're going to notice all the things that VAR do wrong or the ref gets wrong, and all the sort of marginal calls that go your way. You're going to see it slightly differently. Be like, oh, I could understand how that wasn't given, or that's a fair point. But they have
no. Before we move off of that, though, the thing I have to bring up, and it is the 800-pound elephant in the room, is the reason I had no faith in any of this, for the record, was because who was reffing that game?
Oh, yes. We got to talk about him.
I am so scarred by everything that man has done that I fully believe that he had some point to prove. And on the point of reffing, the best refs you ever see are the people who don't impose themselves, don't want to involve themselves in the game. And I genuinely believe, and I'm going to do the Voldemort thing and say his name, Kavanaugh wants to be the star of the show. He wants everybody to respect his presence. And I couldn't have handled it if that had happened. I'm pretty sure I would have gotten a red card there.
Okay, fair enough. I thought he was all right. Maybe just because we won and got a penalty and they got a red card. Maybe that's why I thought he was all right. But yeah,
I thought there should have been a second red card, by the way. And before we move off of the first half, there was a shot that Leno made an incredible save on, like a reflex save, and then gets hit in the throat.
Yes, exactly right.
How is that not reviewed? Like, there is no review whatsoever.
I agree. And funnily enough, I was watching this with my old man and he sort of like waved it off. But I was like, but that doesn't feel like, if it's an accident, I get it, right? But for me, tinfoil hat on, right? I don't get it. There's a diving header from Zian Fleming, a player we're going to talk about later.
Yeah.
Diving header, right at Leno, reflex saved. And then Fleming sort of tries to follow up as Leno already has it. And you see like this wild hand come out and catch Leno in the throat. It's
in the
that's
throat.
kind of
That's not
insane.
allowed in MMA. Like, what are we talking about? And the letter of the law is if it's a reckless challenge. That is the definition of a reckless challenge. So I was actually pretty pissed off that there wasn't a red card earlier in the game, because that to me was just what it. And by the way, he dives 6 yards out. Like, he's diving at the box and he slides forward and then hits him in the throat. Like, what are we doing?
I think that's very fair. I think you and I completely, to use American corporate jargon, we're aligned on this. But yeah, but you know what? And you raised a good point. I want to come back to this, actually. You raised a good point. You said it took a goal in our pre-match chat. It takes a goal to open up the game, right? Could be a goal from Fulham, could be a goal from Burnley. But hypothetical, if Zian Fleming, who's probably one of their best players, their striker who scores later on, 8 goals in the Prem, if he's sent off, Burnley go to a 10, I think they play for the draw at that point. It could even end up a draw. Can we break down a 10-man Burnley who's determined not to attack? I don't know.
I think they were playing for the draw from the beginning anyway, candidly, but that's
the Parker way. That's the Parker way. All right, so nothing much happens in the first half other than Fleming punching Leno in the throat and Calvin sort of, doing his best defensive movement in front of a shot. But we move on to the second half. Much more exciting. 4 goals. I got to give them credit. Probably the opposite how Dyche wanted to play. That was a nice move. That was a nice move from Burnley for them to score. From almost one wing to the other, and then straight back into the center. Delayed run. Should Joa be doing better there? Because I think Fleming has enough time. Like, he has to catch it right, and he does. But Leno's been wrong-footed because Leno's gone all the way to protect one wing and then have to run all the way back. So I think it's a clever move, but Anderson completely loses his man, and Fleming basically gets a good chance with not a huge amount of pressure on him.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it before. Our best back four really does have Kenny Tete in there, and there is an impact that he makes, because if you look at the leading into that goal, Joa is screaming at Castagna for position, and he loses Fleming entirely. And that yard of space with that kind of striker, I don't care that he plays for Burnley. These are all Premier League players. They will find that space. They will get that advantage and take that. So I think he takes his eye off the man. I think there's a problem with doing that. We'll probably come on to the other time that this happened later on. But it was one of those things where, yeah, that one's on Joa for me, and maybe a bit on Castagna. Again, that shot is, well hit. It's in the box. Yes, I'd like Leno to make a heroic save every single time, but there's a certain degree of which I have to be understanding of the keeper. It's a hard position to be in when it's, point blank range. So yeah, I think Joe is to blame for that one, unfortunately.
Yeah, more and more I'm starting to feel, look, I love Anderson. I love what he represents. He's meant to be leadership material, and I think he is, but maybe he could be a bit more vocal. But I'm starting to feel that Palace really got the better end of the deal. I feel like Joe got what he wanted with a 5-year contract. Palace got a good amount of money, and they did it, in my opinion, to block a Gahey move. So they can go to Gahey and say, hey, we already sold one center back. I'm sorry, man, you're going to have to wait next window. And Fulham, yeah, we got an established good center back, but it's just been a bit shaky this season. So that worries me a little bit. But moving on, our pretty immediate response, I'm pretty happy about that. Within 6 or 7 minutes, King gets his second Premier League goal. His second. Yes, in the 67th minute. That's right. It was scrappy. But they all count. And this is going to be fun. The man who sets it up, Sander Berger, immense performance, did well. Have your feelings changed, or is this a flash in the pan moment for you? We'll talk about Berger and then about King. Mike, your thoughts?
Okay, so I have to start with the most important thing before I get on to Sander Berger, and I need to talk about who wasn't on the field for that and who wouldn't make that run, which is ESR, who was out of the lineup for that. Because that is a phenomenal run by King. I thought he was our man of the match. I don't think that's a controversial statement at all. But seeing him get that goal, the reaction, because actually Wilson missed something very similar to that earlier in the game where it had come off Dubravka and he didn't follow it up. King has the wherewithal to turn around and actually score that goal. And look, it's scrappy. They all count. He needed to get off the mark. And you saw not only the relief in his face, but how excited everybody was for him. I loved that. I love that. In terms of Berger, I thought he was fine. I didn't necessarily think he did anything well. I saw somebody comment about how he actually won a header. And again, I still am unimpressed with his jumping reach or his athleticism at all. But I thought he was fine. It's a good ball in, and I'm happy that he got it. I think that now makes, I don't even know if he gets the assist for that, honestly, because it goes off Dubravka. But it's one of those things where that is all Josh King, and the next 20 minutes of the match is the Josh King show. You see a guy with all the confidence. You see the guy who wants to break the lines. You see the person who is seeing the whole game, and that's Josh King at his best. And I don't know if we've seen that since the Chelsea match, to be candid.
Yeah, no, he's still lightweight, obviously, because he's 19. I'm just worried. I think his contract runs out in 2 years' time. Knowing us, we're gonna either run it down or we're gonna try and lowball him with a year to go. But like,
I thought he just signed a new deal.
Let's do a quick check on this. But I feel like he signed a 4-year last year, which would put him at a 2-year at the end of this year. But yeah, but because he's a talent, and I want him to stay for a long, long time. I was going to say, this is what a few other clubs do really, really well. I guess Brentford did it with Igor Thiago. Palace did it with Munoz. If the player has an outstanding year, they immediately sign them up for another 2 or 3 years on a higher salary, just because they know they protect the value that way, and it's just better for them. So
I think those are a little bit different, though, because those are older players. They're a little more established. And as much as I've loved some of the flashes we've seen from King, I'm not sure I would call this an outstanding year. It is a breakthrough year, I would say, where he is establishing himself as, he has to be in the first team. But I'm not sure I would call this an outstanding year. I mean, he's got one goal, and he did have that goal in the FA Cup. And I think he's got an assist too, but yeah, I'm not sure I'd call this an outstanding year, because if I do that, then I have to call ESR's year outstanding as well, and I can't in good conscience say that. No, I can't in good conscience. I can't in good conscience say that.
So I made a slight boo-boo. I'll hold my hand up. He has 3 years left.
So okay, that's what I thought. Yeah,
29. So okay, we could not worry about that for another year or so.
Yeah,
so that's quite good.
I thought he had a little more time, but yeah. But actually, this is a great segue, since I was talking about Josh King's stats into Wilson's goal, because again, got to give Castagne some credit there for that tackle. But you have like Josh King sees the pass, has the vision, has the confidence to play it, and I again, non-controversial statement: Harry Wilson is our player of the season. Does what a man on confidence and informed does, and I heard somebody say this, and it's now stuck in my head. When we're playing well, Harry Wilson is a world beater. When we are playing on the back foot, he can be anonymous at sometimes. I don't know how you feel about that, Mark, but I think it's pretty interesting to see how he plays in games that we win or even draw versus the ones that are like City, where he wasn't really involved too much.
I think that's a very fair point. And the commentator said in the match, he will become 29 this week or something like that. So I understand our hierarchy is going to be pretty nervous, given his injury record, given that this is his best season to date. What are we going to offer him? And does he want to stay with us? There's so many variables in play, right? Does Silva stay? Does the package we offer him make sense in terms of salary? Does it make sense in terms of years? Knowing us, we probably lowballed the salary and we said, we'll give you a 2+1. Maybe Villa will give him a higher salary and a 3+1, right? But if he goes to Villa or Newcastle, hypothetically, I know Villa are interested, maybe Newcastle aren't.
Wrexham.
He's almost certainly a bench player. So it really depends. But yeah, I think he's been massive for us. And I think you're right. He is anonymous in games where we are under pressure and we're struggling. But I mean, I hate to say it because I'm always a positive one. I'm always a deluded one that's optimistic and stuff. But that's kind of where we're at. That's the best we're not going to get a player that's a 9 out of 10 in 9 out of 10 matches, right? Like otherwise we'd be in a Champions League spot. And that player would be going for 80 million or 100 million. We are a team where if we get a real gem, they probably stay with us for 2 years, maybe 3 max, and then they move on to the next rung. But yeah, I'm very happy he did well. But you're right, sometimes it can be a problem. But this is where we're at. We're a mid-table club. We kind of have to accept that our players can be highly skilled but not perform all the time.
I think what's really interesting about Wilson, and I think it's twofold. Number one, and you see this across sports, these players who have breakout years in their contract year, they're betting on themselves. And I think we need to be really, really careful about that with his injury history, with the fact that he's age 29. That, you know, this is the best year that we've seen out of him, other than the first year that we saw him in the championship, which it was unbelievable. And then he tears his ACL right after. So I think there's a lot of things to this. I also think there's a Wilson side to this too, which is look at it, and I'm going to give you a really weird comparison, and it's going to seem a little lazy. Gareth Bale. Think about what happened to Gareth Bale. Does Harry Wilson want to be the star man of a team, be in form, be the man who represents his country and be at his best all the time? Or is he content to go somewhere else and put his name on the potential of winning trophies because, you know, he was in the team, but he was either a super sub or didn't play? And I think that's a decision Harry has to make on his own. I think the compensation package is probably going to be relatively similar, candidly. And I think it's really going to be, does Harry value putting his name on trophies, but being a smaller part of those endeavors? Or does he value being the star man at Fulham potentially and being able to kind of help us kick on that next generation? Because look, we are just outside of the European places right now. And you can't tell me after watching Palace this season, or even Forest, candidly, that if we make it into the Conference League or even the Europa League, that we just can't kick on again. Like that I would love to see us make the Conference League, because I think we can win the Conference League and then go and play in the Europa League, and that gives us 2 seasons to build the squad, and Harry can be the talisman for that.
Yeah, 100%.
That's his call.
And I think it removes, I would hope it removes every argument from the Khans and Ali Mac that we can't spend. Right? If we're in Europe, we're gonna have that prize money. It's guaranteed at a floor, right? Like they have to pay us the entry fee for being
so
there.
Hold on, Mark. There is one thing. They've done the economics on the Conference League, and I actually think teams lose money playing in the Conference League.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh, because it counts as Europe, and so it's 70% instead of 85. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So the Conference League is a bit of an exception, but it's a stepping stone and it's a backdoor into the Europa League. But everything else stands.
It's okay. We'll just do some dodgy financial engineering like Everton, Forest, and Chelsea have done, and hopefully we get the
City.
Huge penalty of 2 points from our overall score, which I think we can handle. Not to sound arrogant, but I think Fulham could stay up with a negative 2-point start if we just apologize. But anyway, moving on. Stop. I'm trying not to be so cynical. Burnley had a bit of a resurgence then. So we score the Wilson goal, beautiful goal, trademark Wilson, cutting in, takes a shot from distance. We score, we're very happy. 2 very good chances. One, a player I think it was Anthony or Foster. Jadon Anthony came from Bournemouth, signed for Burnley at the beginning of the season, I believe. 7 goals and 1 assist. Interesting one to look at if Wilson goes. But I think he runs from a not offside position because it's from a throw-in. Causes a bit of danger there. Followed up with a long-range shot from Hartman, Dutch international, left back, potential Robinson replacement, maybe. And Leno makes a great save, given that was a wicked shot at speed, on target, with a tiny deflection just to make it even more tricky. Very happy to see Leno do that, because honestly, when I saw that, I'm like, they've scored. That's a great shot. Leno looks like he's a bit slow to it. He just gets some fingertips on it and makes the save. But a bit of fight in this Burnley team, fight that we didn't see under a Parker's Fulham. But were you worried then? Did you think they could make it 2-2, or were you comfortable we could ride out the storm?
I was terrified. I don't know why that exact play just gives me flashbacks to West Ham last season.
Mm,
It literally was the exact same play. So that scared the crap out of me. Um, I really, I never really thought Burnley in the first half provided much of a threat, even when they were kind of going after us. But the second that they got one, it felt like they had the confidence to get another. And as you said, Mark, they were willing to kind of fight back in a way that we didn't see, Scott Parker teams of the past do, whether they were Fulham or Bournemouth. Um, and so I was really curious how we were going to attack the rest of the game because I wanted to see us go for a third goal. I was a little more concerned on bringing on an Issa or a Cuenca and going to the five at the back and trying to ride it out because we just haven't been that good at it. So
yeah.
I really did want to see a third. Also, just you look at this Burnley team, they don't get battered by anyone necessarily, but at the same time, they are prone to give up 3 goals. They lose 3-1 a lot. And I wanted that on our record as well, just because it keeps us, in that path of goal difference as well. If we're really thinking that this season isn't over, every goal is going to end up counting.
Yeah, very fair. So we make some substitutions, and I think that changes the game a little bit as well. We get Cess on, and we get Raul on. I don't know if it changes the game that much, to be honest. It probably happened a little earlier than that. But we do get that third goal eventually. Chukwueze, on the same wavelength as Raul, sees the space. Beautiful lofted pass. Raul is through on goal. Laurent, who already is on a yellow card for, I think it's a pretty fair yellow card as well. He shoves him in the back. Let's call it what it is. He shoves it in the back. Is it soft? He doesn't completely barge him off the ball, but it is the wrong side of Raul. It is a shove. There's no attempt to get the ball. It puts Raul off. I don't know. Dubravka makes a save, but I would feel like it would impact that. Clear pen for you?
Yeah, I mean it's a reckless challenge. It impacts the shot. It was clumsy, and yeah, clear pen. It's in the box. I I don't really know what the back and forth is about, candidly.
Yeah, fair enough. And then that gives Raul his 14th of the ever in his lifetime, I guess. I don't know. I'm starting to get nervous now. I know he's 14 for 14, but every time I'm like, oh no, is this the one? Is this the one where the goalkeeper gets it? And he does his stuttered run, which the Burnley fans, football players get really, really upset. Jesus Christ, it sounded like an AI. The Burnley players get upset about because he stutters twice. You're not meant to step backwards. Does he step backwards? Kind of looks like it a little bit, but hey, I'm a Fulham fan, so I'm not really going to question it. And Dubravka, to his credit, guesses right. I feel like he gets a finger on it. Not enough to stop it, but he guesses right, and it's very, very close. But it's 14 out of 14. Raul's clearly emotional because he had his father passed, and it was a tough moment for him and his family. So thoughts go out to them. But that pretty much seals the deal. I don't know why. Maybe because I'm just not a very kind person, but it always makes me happy when the opposition gets a red card as well. So that's just a little cherry on top of the cake. That's a 2-goal lead, a win, and a red card. But yeah, that was a good match. I was happy with that. I feel like
I
we
will
set
say
the
though,
record straight.
I have to say it again. I genuinely believed that Chris Kavanaugh was going to find a way to screw us over there and call back the penalty because of the stutter or because of, I don't know, Raul's too good at it or because he just doesn't like Fulham. I don't know what it was. That was the first time I ever had any concern. And maybe, look, I'm scarred from Kavanaugh. Maybe I'm scarred from Mitro. Like, there are so many potential reasons. It feels good to know that, yes, the deepest, darkest fear I have is that our perfect penalty taker is going to miss for the first time ever. And it's not a 50-50 coin flip on if he's going to make it or not. And candidly, even earlier, when I thought we might have a pen, I don't know if you thought about this, Mark. There are 3 guys who were started the match that I would feel fully comfortable with taking a penalty for us.
Mm. Yeah,
Like,
I
I
mean,
feel perfectly comfortable with Wilson. I feel perfectly comfortable with Iwobi for some reason. I don't know why. I'll tell you, I even probably feel comfortable with Berger taking one. Like,
for me, it's got to be Diop. Diop with his
Diop wasn't on the field.
no-nonsense
Wasn't on the field.
smash the net.
No. We
I
picked
know,
the
but I'm just
players
saying,
on the field.
hypothetically,
Oh, he's
hypothetically.
he's our low-key best penalty taker. I don't disagree with you there. But just looking at, honestly, Robinson taking one. Robinson's been really good at taking penalties. There are a couple players on the field that I'm just like, I have zero concern, like at all.
I think it's just hilarious, the juxtaposition of going from Mitro, who's an absolute bully, right? Such a handful, and just a thug, a bear, a maniac, and he makes things happen, but horrendous at pens. To Raul, who's like definitely less of a bully, a bit more fox in the box, a bit more slide, very skillful. But you know that when we get a penalty, there isn't really, no one's disputing. If Raul's on the field, he's taking it, and he's probably scoring with his double stutter. But
So,
that's not
Mark,
good.
let me ask you this then, and this is a very interesting statistic that's been floating around, that Raul and Mitro, I think, are now on the same number of goals, Premier League goals, in a Fulham jersey. And Raul has done it in significantly fewer games. And it's really interesting, since you brought that up specifically. The styles are totally different. And yes, we've gotten what, 7 or 8 pens from Raul. But it's so interesting to think about the juxtaposition of those two and how they've actually gone about scoring them, because it feels like, at least to me, Mitro was a force, especially when Parker wasn't the manager. He felt like a force under every manager we had other than Parker. And Raul just kind of feels like a guy who, yeah, he got a goal. Yeah, he got a goal. Oh, interesting. He got a goal. Yeah, and it's just like he gets goals. And I've never really thought about them being the exact same in terms of their outputs, but I got to give credit to Tony, personally, at least. Like, that's one of the best signings in the Con era. Has to be.
I think, yeah, when you take money into it, which I suppose you have to take money into it in terms of how much he costed the fee, though I'm sure he's on high wages. Yeah. And look, to his credit, I know I sound like a Raul hater. I'm not trying to be a Raul hater. He works his socks off. I get that. Great attitude, works hard, little bit older, but still, you don't really notice it. He doesn't, unless it's towards the end of the match, then obviously he's a bit more gassed. But yeah, for me, Mitro, what made Mitro special was he was feared. He was a name that was talked about, much like Polina, right? He was a name that was talked about. And I think maybe that works in Raul's benefit. They just say, he's not going to cause that much trouble, and he sort of slyly gets a goal one way or another. But yeah, I mean, they're very different strikers, like you said. The stats are interesting, but the stats are difficult, right? Because it's different. We were playing against different teams. We had a different style. Raul's are more heavily skewed towards the pens that he's scored. Metros are like affected by the penalties that he's missed. So it's a bit tricky, but it's a fun one. But speaking of players, let's give Burnley their sort of flowers a little bit, because there were some pretty good Burnley players out there. I have some names off the top of my head that I want to talk about, but I'm going to throw to you first, Mike. Are there 1 or 2 names that you wouldn't mind seeing in a Fulham shirt if we could get them at a fair price at the end of the season?
I mean, the first one for me, and I don't think it'll be the first one for everybody else, is Leslie Ukachukwu. I think I said that correctly. Scored a hell of a goal against us last time. He's the progressive physical 8 I think we've been really missing this season. He's everything I wish that Sander Berger would actually be when using his size to his advantage. And I don't think he's as big as Berger either. But I would love to see that guy come over. He would be really, really interesting. I think there are shouts for Fleming and Anthony and, a couple others, but I think that's the one for me, that if we could take one player, I think that would probably be the number one.
That's a great shout. I think he was really well regarded at Rennes. Then Chelsea bought him. He's only 21. He's an under 21 French international. He's only 21 years of age. I'm sure Burnley would absolutely charge us an arm and a leg. So it would be unless there's something in his contract that he has to go. But I'm hoping he's under the radar. I don't know. I don't watch other shows. So maybe Brentford fans and Bournemouth fans and Palace fans are already all over him. But I agree with you. I think Ukachukwu looks good. I was surprised he didn't start. Stats are okay. Stats I checked before our pod. 3 goals, 2 assists. Maybe with a bit more time, a different system, we can up those numbers to, I don't know, 5 and 3. Something nice for an 8. But yeah.
Starting regularly too probably wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, very true.
Can I give you one other shout for one other player, by the way? Actually, no, I want to hear yours. I have one I want to wrap on, so why don't you go first?
I was going to say Hartman. I like Hartman. Let me check his age. God, talk about not doing your pre-match Research, huh? But
He's
he's a Dutch
24.
international, and he looked pretty good. He's 20. Yes, you're right. He's 24. It's a good age. That's a good age. That's someone that could be with us for 4 or 5 years. I like that he has a shot on him. Maybe Silva would train that out of him. You are a defender. You do not. What you do is you run down the channels up and down, and then you cross badly into the box. We don't know,
Well,
but I
whoa, whoa,
like
whoa. He
Hartman.
doesn't. He doesn't have to cross badly. He just has to cross. But yeah, we just cross badly. Yeah, I'll be honest. I think it's really hard to get a gauge of out of anyone in this Burnley system on the defensive side of things, just because the way that they set up, it's more of a team effort as opposed to any individual standout defender in my mind. But yeah,
Yeah,
I wouldn't have an issue with that.
yeah.
I
Did you
do
have one
have,
more?
yeah, I have one more. And I just want to see, can I interest you in us bringing back Armando Broja?
What?
And
That has got
I
to
have
be
a
a
very
troll.
specific reason. No. He will be cheap. And Muniz played the best football in his career. When that guy was breathing down his neck, we're looking for another striker. Can I interest you
Oh,
in an Armando Broja?
that was not the Burnley striker I thought you were going to reference. My God. Hey, what's your role? I'm a cheerleader for Muniz.
No. He's chasing him down. Like he's in to challenge him. Like we've talked about that. And again, I'm not saying this is he's the Ricardo Pepi replacement, but I am, or even the Raul replacement. But I am saying that that was the best we've ever seen Muniz play.
I don't. Yes, that's true, but I don't know if we have the money to buy a player just to motivate another player.
How much do we think he actually will cost? Genuinely, what is he
Oh
actually
dear.
going to cost?
Yeah, probably. I don't know. I don't know.
I will.
I'd say market value 10 mil, but Burnley would demand 30.
Then tell Burnley we'll give them tariffs or something. I don't know. That's insane. Anything
Yeah.
in that range, like anything more than about £5 is too much for that guy. But again, the motivational factor for Muniz, and just to remind him that hey, we're gonna come after. We have somebody to come after you. I don't know. Maybe.
Fair enough. Well, let's talk about a man that the Fulham fan base has talked about far too many times. God, it's like a horrific X, isn't it? But yeah, we're gonna bring him up again. His third time managing in the Premier League, often with a whimper. Not trying to be demeaning. I know it sounds demeaning, but can he do it? I don't think he can do it. But can Scott Parker do it in the Premier League? Each time, I mean, bar Fulham, I think he had the resources at Fulham with Mitrovic, Wilson. No, he didn't have Wilson. Sorry, Mitrovic,
Joa,
Ruben Loftus-Cheek,
Lookman,
Jokman, Lookman,
Anguissa.
Aina, yeah, and Gisa. He had the resources then. Bournemouth, I'm not super well versed in, but I imagine he had a somewhat decent team, but maybe on a tight budget as well. Burnley on a tight budget, but can he do it? Can he finish above the bottom three? I don't think so, but your thoughts, Mike?
So Bournemouth was a little bit weird because they spent all their money to get promoted with us. And that's how they didn't really spend any money when they got up to the Premier League. They'd spent it essentially in the January window in order to get themselves promoted. So I think that's a little bit of a tricky situation. That being said, Gary O'Neill still kept them up, and I don't think very highly of Gary O'Neill. He kind of reminds me of, I don't know, B-Tech Nuno.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing with Scott Parker, other than the fact that his jaw exercises are becoming insane. Like somebody needs to talk to him about chewing that gum. Yeah, it's crazy. I'm not ready to fully write him off. I don't want him at Fulham. I want to be very, very clear on this. I do not particularly like his style of play, but there's a manager doing really well in the Premier League right now, or pretty well in the Premier League right now, named Daniel Farke, who's coaching Leeds, and he's been relegated 3 times, I'm pretty sure, as well. Twice with Norwich at least. And he's doing pretty well. Now he plays a very, very different style, but I think that there's the possibility that Parker can do it. But look, at the same time, he just may be a promotion specialist. That may be his role in his career, and he can carve out a very, very nice career on coming into a team, getting them promoted to the Premier League, getting fired immediately, and then swapping them out for their Premier League manager and swapping out the Premier League style. I think that's very possible. And look, that is a role. It's kind of like the reverse Sam Allardyce.
Yeah, makes sense, just to get you up there. But then that feels a bit rough, doesn't it? To be pigeonholed as that. You're the man that gets you up there. It's like, oh, thanks for getting us to the Prem. You clearly can't cut it because you've been relegated 3 times. So,
but he's also
appreciate your time.
Been promoted 3 times, right? Like, that's how many managers have actually accomplished that?
So a little bit more context on Parker. That's fair. A little bit more context. They played some very boring football in the Championship. I think they were draw specialists, and they had a triangle. I don't know why.
But they had over 100. They had over 100 points last year in the Championship.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
Wow. I know they finished second, but I was surprised that. Okay, very good.
Yeah, they were actually.
But they also had Trafford. That's huge.
They did. They had a lot of resources last year. Look, I didn't particularly love their business coming into the season. They took punts on players who kind of had that really good pedigree, but weren't necessarily proven. And I think that's the real difference in our strategy versus theirs is, yes, we have taken some punts on players from bigger clubs, but we also brought in proven personnel. And I think Burnley, to a degree, seemed almost resigned that if they go down, they can sell, Fleming and Ukachukwu and and Marcus Edwards and all the players that we were talking about today, Anthony as well. So yeah, I think this is a weird team. He made, again, if he's a promotion specialist, like, yes, it's harsh, but it's still pretty impressive, I have to say, as much as I don't like the guy personally.
Well, it's a different challenge, isn't it? The Championship. More matches because there's more teams and a more physical game. No VAR as of yet. I don't know if that's going to be implemented. I think there were talks that it would be. But yeah, it's a different beast. And it has its own sort of trials and tribulations. Fair enough. I think he can't cut it. You think he's a promotion specialist? I think that's pretty fair. Now, unless you've been under a rock, and I feel almost silly asking you this because the answer is going to be a resounding yes, but have you been following the odyssey that is the Ricardo Pepi Fulham transfer story? And if so, which is a yes, what are your thoughts on it so far?
I can't look away. I desperately want another full American because I am so scared that with these rumors coming out around Robinson that we are at risk. We have had an American lineup for 19 straight seasons. I want the even 20 at the minimum. So I would love to have him there. That being said, this is starting to smell like Andre 2.0. And I don't like that. I don't like that one little bit.
I think that's very fair. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, because, you're the resident full American. So you're going to be probably better versed than I am in it. But it feels like a deal was pretty much agreed. He came over for the medical. And then there was like a pretty big hiccup, not a little hiccup, because it said the deal is temporarily on hold. It's not off. It's not dead from what we understand on our side, but it's on hold until the end of the season. And that is because Eindhoven wanted Fulham to assume liability. So they would buy him anyway, even if he got injured at Eindhoven. Now, this is my hot take if that's true. Call me... It's so easy to be frivolous with other people's money, right? But I just want us to get it done. Like, I know it's a risk. I understand it's a risk, but I feel like we either like Pepi or we don't. I don't know if this is a negotiating tactic from the Khans to get Silva to sign and say, hey, here's your man. But, what is the risk? The risk is what? Another 2 months of football? And what worries me is this gamesmanship or this negotiating tactic, whatever you call it. What worries me is that we're sort of pushing back. Maybe we're being firm, whatever you want to call it. Someone like Bournemouth comes in, and this is a Kluivert 2.0, where like the deal fails with Fulham. Bournemouth or some other around our level competitor comes in, maybe pays a little bit more, maybe pays the same amount, right? And now they have him, and he is an absolute star for them. And he is their front man for 3 or 4 years before he moves on to a Tottenham or a Chelsea, or if it's Chelsea, it's going to be 1 year because they'll pay stupid money.
It's not going to be It's not going to be Tottenham.
Yeah, it's not going to be Tottenham. That's fair, but that's what worries me. For me, I just want to get the deal done. I know we're taking risk. I know that might sound silly. Like, why would you want liability for a player that's not even playing for you? But like, let's just get it done. Kind of like this. What's his name? I'm going to mess it up. Emega Emega from Strasbourg, who's going to Chelsea. I know it's like a multi-club deal thing, but they bought him, but he still finished the season at Strasbourg, right? Now, obviously not a like-for-like comparison, but for me, just get it done. If we believe this guy is going to compete with Muniz, maybe even take over Muniz, right? For the hopefully 3, 4, maybe even longer. Just take the risk. But am I being crazy here? Am I being frivolous? What's your take?
In any other season, I would agree with you. This is the one I don't. Because you say it's 2 months. It's not. It's 4. Because we do have this thing coming around in the US called the World Cup. And if he gets hurt during that, and yes, there is a trade-off of if we don't get him before that, then he may blow up during the World Cup and be far more expensive. I understand that, but there is a bad history of buying players who blow up at World Cups, and it never pays off for anybody, except for the team that sells the player. I think James Rodriguez is literally the first player that comes to my mind in this. I'm so nervous about that. I really like his profile. I like the fact that he's young. I like the fact that he is a different kind of goal scorer. He's a poacher. He almost feels like a younger version of Raul in a very, very loose comparison sense. But he's not only going to play for Eindhoven. He's going to be in Mauricio Pochettino's squad when the US play. He's not going to start. He's going to be coming off the bench. But it just makes me nervous, candidly, that he's not going to get the break. And by the way, we're probably not even going to get the benefit of having him for a full preseason because the World Cup ends in end of July, I believe. Then, okay, preseason's in August. He's going to want some time off. He's going to want some time to recover, want some time to be with his family. I almost see this transfer slightly being doomed just because of the timeline. It scares me a little bit, candidly. And again, nobody's fault.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, it does feel like we're going to go in at the end of the season and try and buy him before the World Cup. But you're right. He could have an outstanding World Cup and people will say, wow, amazing business from Fulham. Can't believe no one else was in for him. Or he could do his ACL and we buy.
He's already done it once, by the way.
Oh, wow.
He already had a serious injury. Yeah. So I'm one of those people that if it was any other year, I'm on your side, get this wrapped up, get this done. I don't care. But when we're investing that much in him, I would be very, very concerned.
Well, when we say that much, it is about what, £30 million with add-ons. It feels like the going rate for a semi-proven striker. I'm not trying to be, harsh or dismissive here because it is the Dutch First League, right? So semi-proven, obviously sure. Never going to get you. You're gonna pay 50 like Palace did for Strand Larsen for a proven Prem striker, if you want to call him that. He's done all right there, but 30 feels fair. It doesn't feel like we're getting ripped off, and they get a sell-on, which everyone seems to be doing other than us. God, I wish we did that for Goddo.
Well, we have to sell players for that to happen, by the way.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, I'm hopeful it gets done. I think it gets done. There's so many things riding, right? Did he have the chat with Silva? Is he Silva's man? And is he the Khan's man, like a data sheet man? Hopefully both. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah. Anyway, I believe that's it for us. Thank you so much for listening. Finally came out. Always good to chat after a win. Always good to hear from our transatlantic cousin what his thoughts, feelings, and opinions are on our latest matches. So. Mike, thanks
really
so
quick,
much
Mark,
for joining.
One thing I do have to do before we sign off, I need to give a really big shout out to the Fulham DC group that actually went to the match. What a match for y'all to go to. I hope you all had a blast. I'm really sad I didn't get to join y'all.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, but hopefully for Newcastle, right? You're
I am working on Newcastle. Yeah. So we will talk. We will coordinate. There will be some beverages involved, but yes, I'm. My flights are booked. I need to do the hotels and I need to get my ticket. But yes, I will be there for Newcastle.
Awesome. And we're usually at the Distillers or the craft beer company. So if any of you guys listening want to drop by, say hi, share a pint, use and abuse us, be like that opinion on, I don't know, Ugochukwu.
You have to wear beige in front of Mark, though.
That's true. I'm probably going to get along with you if you have no opinion. You just sort of sit on the fence and you make sure that everything is caveated, just like, an advert for American Pharma. But there
I'm
you
gonna
go.
find our training kit from like a year or two ago that was beige and just get that for you. That'll be my gift for you.
Thank you. I'll make sure I wear it on the next pod. But anyway, that's about it from us. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see us off rather with a you whites.